It's a 6-0 start in ACC play for Jon Scheyer's team. Wake Forest comes up this weekend, and let's hope the Duke basketball team can continue these winning ways.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is J.J. Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us today on this Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. On today's show, we'll talk about the Duke men's basketball team and their 6-0 start in ACC play. Blue Devils getting set for Wake Forest coming up on Saturday. We'll also dive into a conversation around Darian Mensah, who's leaving Duke, and the university has responded by suing the Blue Devils quarterback. So we'll break all that down. Glad to have our very good friend Donald Wine from the DVR podcast back with us once again on the show, and it's going to be an awesome conversation. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Take a moment, also watch our show each and every day on YouTube. Like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support means so much to us every year with what we're doing at Locked On Blue Devils. So without further ado, let's bring Donald Wine into the program. My man, it is good to see you, and you and I were just talking. January might be going by, but boy, oh boy, do we have tons of things in the Duke Athletics radar this time of year.
Well, first of all, good to see you again. Good to talk to you again. I know we've been trying to get on each other's shows the last couple of weeks. It's been a busy time for Duke. Just you think about just the men's basketball team by itself, and my goodness, what a time they've been having in the ACC and that West Coast trip. It feels like we're back to what November Duke looked like, which I think is great.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely where we should start, with the big run that they had out in California with wins over Cal and Stanford, becoming just the second ACC team to ever do that. Wake Forest, the first just a season ago. But I made sure to note as well that the week prior to that, the Duke women's basketball team went out and they also won at both Cal and Stanford. They also, Donald, were the second women's team in the ACC to do it twice. But Duke, the first school to have their men's and women's basketball team, not be afraid at all of these California newcomers.
And can we say real quick, for the Duke women, they are on fire right now.
I
love the way they're playing. I know they had a rough November and early December, but they have come alive. And everyone in the ACC is looking up at them. It's really great to see them kind of learn from those mistakes that they were making in November and apply them now. And unfortunately for the rest of the ACC, it is a murderer's row. But yeah, that West Coast deal, that trip, just think about, for the men, we go 2-0 out west. At the same time, UNC goes 0-2.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. And Cal and Stanford this year are very, very good. They showed their ways, and I thought we played some really good basketball to have to beat them. It wasn't always pretty, but to get past Cal and really blitz at the end and then come out from the gates against Stanford was a really awesome thing to see. And hopefully we have a week to kind of figure out how to get that feeling back again.
Donald, when you look at it for the Duke basketball team and the week that they just had, is it the defense that starts this conversation? Because for me, it's like, wow, this is what we've desperately been needing in those first several ACC games.
Absolutely. The defense, as Jon Scheyer has said many, many times, the defense is what he wants to be the catalyst of everything they do. He wants it to be the backbone. He also wants to be the driver for their offense. And you saw that. The defensive adjustments that we've seen from individual players and also collectively as a team to really just take a team out of it and put it all together on the offensive end as well. You've seen, if you look at the metrics for like Ken Palmer, stuff like that, you've seen the metrics kind of dip a little bit in recent weeks, but over the last week, they've shot back up because something on defense was clicking, and something on defense, the rotations, having Dame Sarr just be a brick wall for the best player of both Cal and for Stanford. And just the rotations, I think, are that it feels like this team is starting to, again, move into a realm where they understand that to be the best team in the ACC and to and to absorb everyone's best shot, they got to play with intensity. They got to play with sense of urgency. And we saw more of that out West.
Without a doubt. I mean, the fact that they were able to pick up these wins in the fashion that they did, you always worry sometimes about, are your shots going to travel? What does that look like? And Duke was still able to score the ball effectively and also lock down on the defensive end of the floor. Stanford specifically, you only shoot 10 3-pointers, a season low there, and yet you're still able to win by 30. This offense is just becoming more and more complete in so many ways. I like that it's like a great pitcher, Donald. It's not just a fastball. What we're seeing from the Duke team so far, I think, is that they're able to mix pitches really well.
Well, it's funny. Against Stanford, I don't know that they mix pitches so much as they said, this is our heater. Our heater's name is Cam Boozer. Let's get the ball to him. Let's see what, nobody. And the thing is, if nobody's going to stop him, at times we've kind of said, okay, let's get everybody else involved. Let's get Slim on the 3. Let's get Big Pat in the post. Let's maybe get a Caleb Foster involved on the wing. This time around, it was like, okay, if you're going to let Cam score, then we're just going to give him the ball so he can score. And when they finally tried to figure out how to stop him, Cam Boozer said, no, you're not going to stop me. I'm going to outscore all of you in the first half. And then running away, you had everyone realize that they can get into the post and do damage. And so it's funny. I didn't think we would take just 10 threes. And I even opined on our pod that we maybe should shoot a little more when we have that. But the discrepancy in the paint was so vast and the advantage so great that you had to take advantage of it.
Yeah, 44-20 was the advantage in points of the paint for Duke over Stanford. And part of it, too, was Cam Boozer wanting to be aggressive, scoring the basketball. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but one thing he likes to do is from time to time get his teammates involved and defer a little bit. And it's good to see him put his head down and get the baskets when they're needed for Duke. And that just makes them all the more important. Just his all-around game continues to improve game by game. 3 steals for Cam Boozer as well against Stanford when the defense had been one of the knocks for him. You're looking for just anything at all to nitpick with his game specifically. So, of course, the haters would turn to something like the defense, but he stepped up with a good game on that end of the floor too.
I mean, if you're going to nitpick, he had 51 points and 23 rebounds on the week. He should have had 55 and 25. That's a nice, healthy number, and he should strive for that kind of perfection. No, but in all seriousness, the fact that he, again, is starting to realize that he's going to take everybody's biggest assignment. He's going to have 2 or 3 guys on him at all times, and he knows for this team to be successful, he's got to figure out a way to fight through it. And I like that against Stanford specifically, he wasn't kind of defaulting to just, okay, let me just stay out here and shoot a 3. Sure, he hit one, but it wasn't that he was looking for his 3-point shot. He was looking to get into the post where he knew he had the size advantage. He knew he had the talent advantage, and he knew he could go with it and nobody could stop him. And I think that mentality is what we're going to need for everyone on the team, but especially for Cam Boozer to carry into February, March, and hopefully early April. That kind of killer instinct where anyone in the gym knows, okay, number 12 is getting the ball, and when he does, it's going to be 2 points for Duke.
Just a second ago, Donald, you talked about the rotation and kind of where this team's at. 6 games into league play with a 17-1 record overall on the season. We've got a few thoughts that I want to dive into specific to that in just a moment. We'll do that on the other side of this break. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Hey, Fridays always feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where specials offers drop right inside the FanDuel app right before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during happy hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, back on the program today, my good pal Donald Wine II from the DBR podcast hanging out with me today. We're talking Duke basketball, getting set for their game coming up against Wake Forest. And man, the starting lineup, it feels like, changes every single game. The rotation kind of shifts as well a little bit, Donald, and yet there are all these wins that we're getting to talk about.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think at the beginning of the season, we probably thought that there was going to be like 4 solid starters and that 1 fifth starter being that 3 position that could be one of several players. But really, we're focusing on Dame Sarr, Nick Khamenia, or Darren Harris. All of them bringing their different qualities to that position and why they would be able to start. But we saw Caden Boozer get starts. We've seen Pat Gongba go to the bench. We've seen Dame go back and forth from the starting lineup. And it's clearly Jon Scheyer trying to figure out what combination makes sense, not just for the 5 that are starting the game, but also how the bench rotations would work and how guys can be productive off the bench. We've had an erratic, if there's one, major flaw about this team, other than sometimes not shooting free throws, it's that the bench has had some erratic production with regards to scoring. And we've had some games where the bench has scored 35 points.
A great point.
And we've had some where they've been very very ghostly, 3 to 4 points off the bench. And that needs to be consistent for this Duke team to really be successful, because there's going to be a point where, somebody in the starting lineup gets foul trouble. They're going to have to go to the bench. You're going to have to rely on the bench for more than just defensive production. You're going to have to rely on the offensive side as well. But I've seen, Jon Scheyer just trying to tinker with this rotation to see what combinations make sense. And honestly, during the game, figuring out, okay, who has the hot hands? Who's our best lineup out there? He's looking at numbers. He's looking at stats during the game. He's looking at them at halftime to say, these 5 guys are the ones I want to go with down the stretch.
And Donald, there are moments, you think about the defense that Duke's been able to play where those are solid lineups, but I like what you're talking about, the scoring, because there are times where the lineup is like, who's going to get the point? Who's going to be the guy that you look to feature offensively when you have certain sets of players out there, mainly when there are moments where either Boozer's not out there, Slim's not out there, and you're really hoping that you get an a Caleb Foster second half performance against Louisville, right? Or that you can feature Patrick Gongba to go get you some on the offensive end of the floor. But for those guys, that hasn't always been their game. So now you're asking them to increase their shot volume and workload.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily, again, it's got to be within the flow of the game and the flow of the offense, but you don't want it where, for example, Malik Brown checks into the game, and we know he's not the offensive focal point, but we need him sometimes to finish off, get offensive rebounds, and put it back in, get those alley-oop dunks, get those tips. And in addition to everything that he does so well on the defensive end. So Dame Sarr is a guy that we thought was going to be maybe a little bit further ahead offensively. But as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, his defense has been incredible. And he did have that one game, I believe it was against Cal, where he started hitting a couple of threes. And again, that production was something that didn't come out of nowhere. But man, did it really give a boost to the squad, that knowing that a Dame Sarr or Nick Khamenia is in the game, that we can get offensive quality from them in addition to the defense. And that means there's no drop off between the starters and the bench when they come in, so that our starters can get the rest that they need. So that, again, come clutch time, winning time, if you want to call it, those guys are fresh, they're ready to go, and the other team will realize that they've missed a great opportunity to steal the game.
In that wing spot, I think defense is certainly what we're talking about for Sarr specifically. Hustle is what comes to mind for Nick Khamenia, right? Like that, and effort has been a big word that I think has fit his game so far. There have been some bad shooting performances. You and I can tell the truth here. There are some looks that Khamenia has had, and it's like, whoa, that wasn't the best there. But he's also had some nice stretches offensively. I think for Nick, continuing to take steps forward in his game, that's only going to benefit this team moving forward. And I'm hopeful that there will be a big kind of back half of ACC play turnaround here for Nick Khamenia. That's one of the guys I think a lot of people are looking to.
Yeah, it's funny. We've seen games where he's hit a couple of threes and he gets 10 points. We've seen him get 10 points the hard way, where he's going to the rack, he's finishing through contact and hitting his free throws. And so he has obviously a very wide range to his offensive game. And it's hard. I tell you, this is someone who played the game. It's hard to come off the bench and be a guy who can turn it on and score 15 points. Like, it's just, it's sometimes impossible, just given the flow of how the game works. but we're asking these guys to kind of say, hey, we're not asking you to get 10 points, but when you come in, don't be an offensive liability, be an offensive asset to this team when you have the ball in your hands, because that is only going to make their starters even more tired, their bench even more tired. So that, again, when they're gassed and you're fresh, because we've had these guys coming in and out and everybody is kind of performing at the level they need to, it feels like they have to expend more energy to catch up to us. And that's where we have them. And so it's obviously something that can continue throughout the season. You're going to have these ebbs and flows, but in the end, if we can rely on our bench for offense and defense, just like we do the starters, but on a truncated schedule or truncated time frame, that's only going to make this team more elite. And it's going to, when we play those really, really good schools, they have good benches. They have good bench production. We will match them, and then our starters can take care of the rest.
Where does Duke go in, or Darren Harris specifically? I mean, the minutes have really cut off for him, and the percentages are still there. But a sophomore season where he did not play a ton as a freshman, I'm hopeful that there's still a role to be made for Darren Harris. But then, Donald, I find myself having to remind my JJ there are only so many minutes in a basketball game that are played out to go around and that sort of thing. But it certainly does feel like Darren Harris, I don't want to, maybe on the outside looking in as Duke kind of gets into these bigger and bigger games down the stretch.
There's only 200 minutes to divide amongst, for Duke, like 9 players.
Right.
And there's only one basketball. So only one person can shoot and make it on any given possession. And Darren Harris, I feel like, has lost his confidence, because if you remember, he had some games where he'd come in and shoot the ball. And maybe it was, you could call it garbage time if you wanted to, but at least he had the confidence to take that quick shot that we know he can, and
like
make
the third game of the year against Army, he's making 5 threes. I mean, he was very active in a game like that.
And even if you go back to Texas Tech, he was shooting 3 or 4 threes. He may not have made them, but he was confident enough to take them within the flow of the game. I think it's been 3 or 4 games in a row where he hasn't attempted a shot, and he's only been on the floor a couple of minutes. Now, could he be sick? That's a question. I mean, obviously Duke doesn't like to tell people when guys are sick, but it's winter, the flu season around. We know some guys have been sick, and that's affected their play. Hopefully it's not that, but hopefully he can get his confidence back, because when he's in the game and he can get off a couple of threes and make them, man, those are just such big momentum builders for us, especially at home, where the fans clearly love him and they want to see him succeed. And they know that if he is doing well, then it's really, really beneficial for Duke.
And it's like an opportunity to open up something else for somebody. If the defense is having to respect, oh man, number 8 is in. Darren Harris has checked into the game. We've got to be aware of this guy being a 40% three-point shooter and where he's at all times. How much does that benefit Caden Boozer or Caleb that's in the game, or even Cam in those moments where you want to get him the basketball again?
And he's great at passing, just like everybody else, at passing around the horn. So if you see him in the corner and all of a sudden the defense has to stretch that much farther to get to him, bing, bang, bong, another pass here and there, and all of a sudden you have another guy wide open for a 3, and he's burying it. And now you have this team on a swivel going, where's the shot coming from? I don't know. That's how you get, and that's where Darren Harris can be a big piece of this. Again, he doesn't have to play 15, 20 minutes for that to happen, but in the time that he's in there, I'd love to see him be productive and be confident with a shot, because we want him to take that shot. That's why he's here.
I've heard you talk about kind of segments of the season before and kind of where we're at this portion of the year, being 6-0, as we've got a week off, Duke being one of the ACC teams that's got the bye slots in the midweek here and not playing again until Saturday against Wake Forest. We've got the schedule kind of scrolling across the bottom of the screen for those on YouTube. These next couple for Duke, home with Wake Forest, Louisville, at Virginia Tech, and then versus Boston College before you get that first game against North Carolina. Where are you at when you sort of evaluate this next stretch of 4 games for Duke before they get to the first showdown with the Tar Heels?
Well, I'm going to be interested to see how they play this Saturday, Monday. It's the first real Saturday, Monday double we've had
this
turnaround. Season. Yeah, that quick turnaround. Also, I mean, for us on the East Coast, JJ, I don't know if it's going to affect you, but we're expecting a major snowstorm. Myself and Jason, we're going to go down this weekend for the game, and it's not going to work out with the potential snow, which could keep us in the hole for a while. But I digress. I think when it comes to Duke so far this year, we've kind of gotten what we've asked for: a much better ACC. ACC where it's not a blowout every game. Not every game is a 30-point blowout like it was against Stanford. Every team has made us work for it. We've had some games we've had to grind out. We've had some games where the shooting wasn't there. We've had some games where defensively we were lapsing, and we've had to figure out how to become a complete team. I think Stanford was our first complete performance in quite a while. And I think that is only going to help us because, again, now we know how to do it. Just like you said, this week with this midweek break, we kind of have to relearn how to recapture that rhythm as we enter the weekend where we have a short turnaround with 2 games in 48 hours. But I think this team is right where it needs to be. And the fact that we're still undefeated in the ACC with a much better ACC than it was last year, it is an incredible testament to the coaching staff, to the players, and how they've performed this season, how they've, again, figured out a way to win some games, how to come from behind, how to put teams away, and they still can get better. That's the scary thing about this team is they're not at their full potential yet. Jon Scheyer last week said he wants to get this team to maximize where they can be, and they're not there yet. And the fact that they're still playing well enough to win and be undefeated and tops of the ACC and one of the best teams in the country, despite not yet having everything running on all cylinders, there's still always room for improvement. And that means that we can get better as the season goes along so that when we do hit March, we're the team to beat.
Without a doubt. I want to continue to be the team to beat, and I want to see the Stooke team go on yet another big postseason run. I know you're in that same boat as well. I also want to be able to transition to a little bit of a football conversation. So we'll get set to do that in just a moment here on Locked On Blue Devils. Also do want to note as well, last night, Clemson lost to NC State in men's basketball, a game that went to overtime. Will Wade, the NC State head coach, of course, he graduated from Clemson, able to knock off his alma mater. Why is that significant? Well, Duke basketball now is the only undefeated team in men's basketball ACC standings. We'll see how that continues for the Blue Devils coming up this weekend. All right, we talk football with Donald Wine here in a moment. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen and your first watch here today. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network out there. If you haven't done so already, make sure you go check out our brand new Everydayer Club. Here's what this is. It's access to an ad-free audio version of Locked On Blue Devils compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, every other major podcast app. This gets you an invite to our members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. I'm in there talking throughout the games, able to offer commentary and back and forth. So see you guys there. And also our Everydayer Club gives you access to our Locked On store. Yes, so many of you guys are asking about Locked On merchandise. Joining the Everydayer Club gets you access and a 15% off discount. Go check out LockedOnBlueDevils.supercast.com. That link is down in the show notes below to learn more. Okay, Donald Wine's with us on the program today, and now we got to talk a little Duke football and what has been a very chaotic run for Manny Diaz's squad over the last few days. The last day to enter the transfer portal was Friday. Darian Mensah makes the decision to join the rest of over 1,000 college football players. I think it was over like 3,000 that entered the portal at the end of the season, Donald. And now we've got Duke suing Darian Mensah. This is insane that fresh off celebrating the first ACC title in forever, since the 80s, now we're talking about a Duke team that has lost their quarterback and now in a lawsuit.
It's wild the way the last, 4 days have gone. Yeah. And, waking up Tuesday morning and Tuesday afternoon going, oh, we finally sued. Okay, what does that mean? And then
moving forward with this,
court already ruled on the TRO, and then word is that the judge is a Duke basketball season ticket holder, so he had to recuse himself. So now there's going to be another hearing in a couple of weeks. It's wild. And I think, for me, I'm an attorney by trade. So part of my day has been trying to figure out, look at the complaint and try to make some sense of all this in a layman's term, because the one thing that I think people will get wrapped up in is the emotion part of it. As fans, we are emotional that our quarterback decided to flip on us at the last hour, right? Yeah. And that's totally fair. The court of law is not emotional in that. It has legal arguments. It has what the law is, and somebody has to interpret it to the details of this particular case and this particular contract. Not everything is cut and dry. I know some people have kind of honed in on provisions from the contract that's been in the complaint. Again, you have to look at the whole thing and figure out where there's maybe a hole that may be so small to you as a layman, but to an attorney, it becomes a lawsuit waiting to happen and something that they can get out of. And I'm fascinated to know how this, from a legal standpoint, is going to proceed. I'm looking into the case right now so that I can provide my own thoughts, which are just going to be, mine as just based on my legal background. But again, I think the emotions are going to be a part of this story because we are losing our quarterback, and our university is suing to keep our quarterback, whether he wants to stay here or not. And so there are emotions involved in that part of things. And we have to figure out what the unemotional side is and the legal side, and what that details about what Darian Mensah's next step is going to be. I will note that, for a lot of people who are upset at the University of Miami, who of course are just coming off of the national championship game on Monday night, they're not involved in this. Duke is suing Darian Mensah directly, and it's because he has not been able to sign with any school yet. So there's no harm created by another school. So it's fascinating that they decided to say, we're not going to enter your name into the portal until we resolve this. And a court basically already said that, you can't stop him from leaving, but we can talk about everything else a little bit later.
For sure. I mean, and the fact that, you think about all the big court cases that have played out in our country, and who's to say that Mensah versus Duke doesn't become this greater thing in the future of college athletics? I mean, I enjoyed the conversation that we had yesterday on the show with Michael McCann from Sportico. I'd encourage people to go listen to that. And also what you guys have coming to the DBR podcast on with your background, like you said, to dive into that. But this employment status, that remains not a thing at all in college athletics, when when you just look at all of this, it should be an employment status case, and it's just simply not.
And it's because the NCAA years ago, when NIL started to become a thing, decided not to regulate it. It goes back to the fact that, as you mentioned, players are not employees. They're not being hired by the school to perform a specific function, which is to play football. And there's no collective bargaining. There's no benefits. Like, the only thing is, I pay you, you do NIL stuff for us. And
Right.
Yes, you also play football. And the NCAA is going to, and this case, I don't know that it's going to be one that sets the market, so to speak, but it will be lessons learned for a lot of people. I think for schools, they're going to be hesitant about trying to get a player to sign a 2-year deal if they know that a court is just going to let them go. And on the player side, they're going to say, why would I lock myself into a 2-year deal when I want to reopen my options after every year and take the risk that if I'm not as good, then maybe I'll get less money, and a school will say no. We've already had lawsuits on the other side where players are suing schools for not getting their NIL money that they said was due them, and the school saying, well, you, for lack of a better word, you're terrible. So you didn't play well, so we didn't pay you as much. And so, again, most people are thinking about the contracts on one side of the case, whatever side that you support. But at the end of the day, contracts are meant to protect both parties from this. And so I feel like at the end, there might be some settlement. There might be some arbitration if that's what the court decides on. But there's going to be, don't count on a situation where Duke is going to be the only one happy in this. Because at the end, both parties are probably going to walk away from this dispute unhappy about certain terms of this dispute. They may be happy about bigger terms, but maybe some smaller details where they go, you know what, we just had to let that one go because we wanted this big fish. So I think it's going to be a fascinating case, but I also think it just goes back to the thing that the NCAA has to be the adults in the room, and so far they have proven not to be. And that is why we have this scenario right now, because if there was an NCAA with regulation, we'd know what all the contracts were. We'd know how much people were making. Just like the NBA, you'd kind of say, okay, JJ Jackson signed a 2-year deal worth $8 million.
Right. Can go to free agency here,
correct.
All the things.
Or again, I'm a soccer guy. We can have transfer fees. JJ, I want to buy JJ's contract and transfer him over here. I got to pay Duke some money for that. And they can agree on a term that can that'll allow them to buy out the contract. They rip it up and I sign a new one with you. That's how it works. But going back to your original premise, employee, that term employee, has to come into play there, and that's where the NCAA has to step in.
And we got to have some resolution there, because to your point, you want to be able to unionize and then form the collective bargaining agreement. You can't do that unless your employees first. And then the universities want to not do that so quickly because of their involvement with benefits that would come with that and all the things. So it's insane that we're here and that Duke is getting a chance to play such a pivotal moment in what could be, again, just a groundbreaking moment in college sports.
Yeah, and I think one thing to keep in mind is, in the case of Darian Mensah, I don't know that if he did this 18 days ago, instead of that video saying that he was coming back,
for sure,
he had videos saying that he was leaving to transfer portal, we'd be disappointed. But
sure,
we would be like, hey, you know what? He decided to go. Whether there's a contract in mind, I feel like there would have been a more amicable split than there is now, doing it the way he did at the 11th hour. Apparently, felt like online a lot of the players were as surprised as we were that this was something that was happening. And we've heard some rumblings about other players that might have decided to, open up their options at the last hour because of the fact that he decided to enter the portal. So it's about leaving the program high and dry without a backup plan because you didn't give them enough time. You ran the clock out and then took the ball. And so I think that's where
benefiting your teammates, like you're saying, but then Duke as well. Like, hey, what's our plan now that we don't have this quarterback?
And there were so many quarterbacks in the portal, right? that Duke could have gone after, and there's still some today, right? There's still reports of Duke maybe considering some guys that were playing in that national championship on Monday night. But I think at the end of the day, Duke has to do what it needs to do to protect itself, and that includes all the legal remedies afforded to him by this guy leaving them high and dry, and also feeling like that he can still satisfy the terms of his NIL contract and get his money while playing somewhere else. Duke's not going to obviously let that happen, but that's where this lawsuit is stemming from.
No doubt. Excited to kind of see how this all plays out and what the future of Duke football looks like, and what Darian, again, this is a guy that his numbers are 34 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, over 3,000. Great season for Duke. It's things that has to end like this and not the greatest of circumstances for both parties involved in that sort of thing. Donald, man, I always enjoy our chats. I really want people to go check out all of your work in the DBR podcast. Tell us a little bit about it and how people can support you.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, JJ, and everyone listening. Of course, this man is the hardest working man in showbiz, as I mentioned. There's been times where I've tried to call him and he's doing something else because he's that guy. And I appreciate you and all the work that you do.
Thanks, man.
Over at Duke Basketball Roundup, we obviously are doing a lot of stuff around the game of basketball, men's basketball. We also dive into football and women's basketball as well. But also check us out, Duke Basketball Roundup. You can find that wherever you get this show. And after you listen to this show, come check out our perspective and hopefully you enjoy it and stick around.
Awesome, man. Donald, we'll do this again soon, okay?
Sounds great, man. Good to see you.
All right. That's Donald Wine joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, and that's going to bring our show today to a close. I appreciate everybody for their support here on Locked On Blue Devils. Be sure to follow us wherever it is that you get your podcast. Subscribe, and also subscribe to our YouTube feed as well. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you, and good day.